What's up, everybody? Welcome to Fantasy Sports Now. Today I want to talk about some quarterback breakouts that I foresee. This is done before the draft, all right, guys? So keep that in mind. We'll probably do an update to this as we get closer to actual drafts here, but there are a number of names that we got to look after. So if you like jumping right into the content, then hit the subscribe button because we're already getting into the content. And so we're not spending an hour here, guys, all right? We like to jump right into it. The title says 5 names, but I actually have 6 on here, so don't let me forget. I don't know how you would, but let's jump right in. Okay, here we go. So we're talking Carson Wentz here. Obviously goes from the Eagles. He's a guy that had super potential coming out in the draft. Super potential, but then it just never really came together. He kept getting hurt. Philly basically gave up on him and let him go here and didn't try to re-sign, just basically let him go. And Indy decides, you know what, we like what we see. We like the potential. Phillip Rivers was here. He was very safe, and he didn't get it done. At the end of the day, Indianapolis wants to win the championship. So does everybody, right? So they think that Carson Wentz is that guy that has enough potential to get them to the promised lands, and it might pay off. And for me, from a fantasy perspective, it's a great offensive line, great O-line. It's still a really good run offense, which is going to help him in the passing game. So those are the kind of things that I look for in these breakouts. And a breakout, again, if I didn't really explain it yet, a breakout for me is a guy later in the draft that I'm rather taking as a bench guy with super high upside, or if I waited extraordinarily long for a starting quarterback, it's a guy that's worth the high risk kind of a thing. So for me, Carson Wentz is a good option this late, even though he's 17th. People are taking Kirk Cousins before, or they're going to be taking Ben Roethlisberger before. Those guys are very, very safe. And that's fine if you took a high-flying quarterback up front. If you decided to take maybe a Dak, then you can kind of fall back with a Roethlisberger to be safe in case something happens to Dak. But if you took somebody safe initially for your quarterback, look for these guys. All right, let's just keep going. So I talked about Jalen Hurts a little bit on the targets because I really like Jalen Hurts. I think Philly's offense could be strong. They're in a very weak division, as we saw last year. I think Dallas honestly runs away with the division this year if Dak can stay. I talk about Dak a lot, right? But for me, Hurts is a dual threat. He's that next kind of guy up, him and the next one. So let me just kind of jump back and forth here. I'm talking about Tua and I'm talking about Jalen Hurts. Because right now you got Josh Allen, Kyler Murray, Lamar Jackson, Dak Prescott, even Russell Wilson, a little bit of Deshaun Watson. These guys are kind of run and pass options, which is amazing for fantasy purposes. And the next kind of crop of those guys to me is Jalen Hurts and Tua. Tua's obviously going to get the job. Fitzpatrick's gone now, which is great, and an Alabama guy, Alabama QB. I just there's something about that I like, and I think that there's massive upside to Tua. So if you're looking for a flyer late, especially as a backup, like Tua, man, he could just go absolutely bananas. Dolphins, luckily, they believe in him now. It seems like they're going to give him a chance at least. Last year, it seemed like they weren't really ready to give him a chance, and it was a weird season. But this is the year, and I think the upside's tremendous. Moving on is kind of an odd pick, really, is Daniel Jones, because look at the season he had. 11 touchdowns. I'm looking at it right now. 11 touchdowns, 500 yards rushing. That there was that hilarious kind of him falling, running 60 yards. So really should have had another rushing touchdown in there, but he fell over and it was kind of funny. So Daniel Jones has had a very bad set of circumstances with him. So Barkley's been out. Barkley was out all last year again. So what happens when your big time running back is out is you don't have to stack the box anymore, so you have a lot more coverage. So it's a lot harder to pass when you know they can't run the ball. A lot harder, almost infinitely harder. So that was a major thing holding them back. But now they bring in Kenny Golladay, which is a Detroit boy here, and Kenny Galladay's awesome, okay? Like, if he's on the field, the dude's an absolute stud. Last year, or maybe it was 2 years ago, he was the number 3 receiver coming off of boards, and the reason is because he's awesome. He just is. So for me, you add Barkley back into the mix where they're going to have to bring guys into the box, and you add Kenny Galladay to the outside, and the fact that he's 23 and still has a lot to give and a lot more potential, I think he could go off. I really do think he could go off. These numbers that you see over here are not what you're going to see this year. And for me, Daniel Jones is like a perfect bench guy with super high upside. That's what I like. Next is my boy Jameis Winston. I love Jameis Winston. I don't know why. I liked watching him at Florida State. I liked watching him at Tampa Bay. I owned him on that Tampa Bay team when they, before they got Brady. This guy is fantasy gold. I think I've talked about him a couple times before. He's just truly fantasy gold. So a couple things too. Breeze obviously retires. It sounds like they are leaning towards Jameis Winston. It's his second year now in New Orleans, which is big. He now has had time to kind of get with the program. It's still a super elite offense. Kamara's still there. Michael Thomas is still there. These guys are still there. And for me, watching him at Tampa Bay before they got Brady, like I said, he would just chuck. He would have so many yards, and yes, he would throw a ton of picks. But for most fantasy leagues, that doesn't even matter. And some of them they do, but it still didn't matter because he was throwing 4 touchdowns a game and like 3 picks, and he had, just a ton of yards. I almost said something I shouldn't. A ton of yards, guys. It was a lot. And so he's fun to watch. He's the perfect kind of guy to pick up on your bench because he could not only start, it sounds like he's going to, but he's going to go off. I believe in him. He's going to go off. It's awesome. Last guy I got here is Cam Newton, which, it's weird to say Cam Newton is a breakout because he's had such an interesting kind of career. I like Cam Newton. I liked watching him back in Auburn, kind of like Winston here. But, he only played 10 games last year. This is year 2 in the kind of New England way, the Bill Belichick way kind of thing. So that can only be helpful for him. Look at the rushing touchdowns. That's what I want you to see is he had 600 yards, which isn't, Lamar Jackson territory. But he had 12 touchdowns because what New England obviously does is when they're on the 1-yard line, they just let him sneak it in, and it works a lot. And I don't expect that to go away. If Cam Newton stayed healthy for 16 games, it's not outside the realm of possibilities that he scores 16 touchdowns rushing. Throw a little kind of passing touchdowns on the top of that. You could even say that Cam had a bit of a down year because it was kind of a roller coaster for him. So if he could kind of put these pieces together and kind of repeat some of the things that they were doing before, which it seems like they should. It's year 2. This could be a big season for Cam Newton, especially, he's getting taken 21, so it's like a clear backup. You're not taking him as the starter. So for me, this has got upside written all over it. Like, would I rather have Cam Newton or Matt Ryan? It's closer than you think. I would rather have Cam Newton than Joe Burrow. I would rather have him than Kirk Cousins. I'd rather have him than, who else we got here? Roethlisberger. It's pretty close in there. And so for me, 21 is way too low, guys. So keep that all in mind. As we get closer to the draft, this will probably change. This will probably update. Trades are happening. Darnold got traded, so that changed things a little bit. But stick with it, guys, and we will see you next time. Hit that sub button, boys.